Welcome to IMPRI Web Policy Talk. I may request our moderator for today, Dr. Simi Mehta, to proceed with the deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, a very warm good morning to everyone. On behalf of the Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development at Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi, India Water Portal, and Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, I welcome you to episode 15 of the State of the Environment, #Planet Talks with me, Simi Mehta. This discussion series on the state of the environment is specifically curated to serve as a platform for transdisciplinary exchange of insights to foster a convergence of the natural and social sciences in order to generate greater awareness and produce knowledge on the environment of the past, present, and future with an eye on sustainable development. We all know that the crisis of COVID-19 has actually altered global waste generation dynamics and has called for urgent global policy attention. Biomedical waste, household waste, plastic waste, and also food waste management have all been a major cause of concern during the crisis. And they also posit significant negative health concerns for the safety of the sanitation workers. Further, there's a need to understand the effect of COVID-19 on the generation, recycling, and disposal of solid waste. To take us through this and to illuminate us on responsible consumption and production for climate action towards effective waste and resource management amid COVID-19 pandemic, we are fortunate to have with us Professor Shyamala Mani, who is advisor, wash and waste management, at Public Health Foundation of India and advisor to the Master Plan Delhi 2041 and Climate Center for Cities. Excuse me. Excuse me. Professor Shyamala Mani holds a PhD in Environmental Sciences from Jawaharlal Nehru University and also Masters in Public Health from the School of Public Health at UC Berkeley, California. She is a National Science Talent Scholar, a recipient of the ICAR Fellowship in Agricultural Microbiology and Fogarty International Fellowship in Environmental Health. She has presented in several national and international conferences. Professor Mani has received the UNCHS Global 100 Award for Waste Management and Sanitation in Bangalore in the year 1998, the Plasticon Award for Plastic Reuse and Recycling in 2005, and she has also received a recognition from United Nations University, IAS, Japan, for Regional Center of Expertise on Waste Management in Pilgrimage Places in 2007. Professor Mani joined NIUA in 2012 after working at the Center for Environment Education for 25 years as Program Director of Waste and Resources Management. She now consults for NIUA under the Master Plan Delhi 2041. She's an executive committee member of the Climate Center for Cities. And she has also guided and she continues to guide various projects for the Center for Environmental Health. She's a member of several professional organizations and has published reputed books. She has published in reputed books and journals. Professor Mani has also helped formulate various important policies. For example, the Biomedical Waste Management Rules 1998 and 2016, the Municipal Solid Waste Management Rules 2000 and 2016, Plastic Waste Management Rules 2011 and 16, which was promulgated by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Professor Mani is a member of the advisory committee of the Understanding Climate and Health Associations in India. She was a member of the Expert Advisory Committee for selecting the solid waste management projects for the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. She was the chairperson of TFAC Committee for Technical Needs Assessment for Waste Sector for UNFCCC under the Ministry of Science and Technology, and also a member of the Integrated Solid Liquid Waste Management under Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, Government of India. Along with several researchers in Asia, Africa, and South America, she has completed the book on municipal solid waste energy conversion in developing countries, Technologies, Best Practices, Challenges, and Policy, which was published in 2019 December by Elsevier, in which she is the regional editor for Asia. She is also a member of the Rotary Club of Delhi Central, New Delhi. Professor Mani's main interest is in improving public health in India through research, training, and in helping build climate resilience in economically weaker sections of the society through innovation and education. We are so privileged to have you, ma'am, this morning. I invite you to make your presentation. Over to you. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And, I thank you so much, Dr. Simi, and thank you so much, Dr. Arjun Kumar, and all the other members of IMPRI. I'm really privileged and honored to be invited by IMPRI to give this talk on responsible consumption and production for climate action. As you can see from my background, this is obviously really my pet topic. So going on with this morning's talk, may I have the first slide, please? Yeah. So if you see this responsible consumption and production is the goal 12 of the SDG Sustainable Development Goals. And it says in its definition itself that it should decouple the economic growth and resource use in the most critical and complex changes that is facing humanity today. And I'm not going to read this out. This is available in the internet, and also you can see the important, the goal, which the goal itself defines, is about the footprint. That is, one is not saying that one should not have economic development. One is also not saying that, all sections of the humanity should not be, wanting development. But at the same time, one has to find methods by which the material footprint that we are causing in the planet should be in a way that is sustainable. May I have the next slide, please? So you can see here that the developed countries, obviously, there is no doubt about it that because of their lifestyles and because of the kind of consumptions that they have been having, that their material footprint has been much larger than the developing country. But with aspirations in countries like India or any of the other developing world, one cannot just point fingers only at the developed countries, and we have to leapfrog into systems and maybe technologies, maybe governance structures and various other methods so that our aspirations are met with, and at the same time, we do not cause a lot of damage to the planet. So you can see that there are, large companies also which are coming around, and many of them have started having policies and initiatives that are driving towards this kind of development. May I have the next slide, please?
Ma'am.
This is the next slide, right?
Hello.
Ritika, can you hear me? Ma'am is here.
Yes, okay. Okay. So coming to the next slide, each year, all like a lot of the food that we produce is going waste. Like for instance, even in our own country, we know for a fact that a lot of the farm produce, which is procured by government agencies, are going waste. And it may be because it is in in poor condition, or they are being stored in poor condition, or it is not utilized the way it should be, but it is being wasted. Other than that, the lifestyle itself that we have adopted is based on a lot of wastage. So even if you see food, or if you see energy, it is said that even if we just start switching off lights or using more efficient electrical appliances, we could save so many $billion in a year. And the same way, if the population continues with this kind of lifestyle, we have already reached about 1.5 planets, they say. Then we'll be probably requiring 3 planets by the year 2050. In fact, we are amazed at the fact that this is something which Mahatma Gandhi said almost a century ago, one could say, when he said that if we followed the same kind of lifestyle as the Western lifestyle, we will eat up the entire world like locusts. That is the word he used. May I have the next slide, please? Yes. So the thing about sustainable, when you say sustainable consumption and production, it doesn't mean that one has to reduce the consumption and production to such an extent that one cannot have any kind of development, or one cannot have any kind of aspirations. That is not true, because poverty alleviation is one of the biggest goals of sustainable development. As you know, that it is almost the first or the second goal. So therefore, it is, without hunger and poverty alleviation is something that we have to achieve. But only thing is, we need to have a systemic shift to a more sustainable economy. How are we going to do that? That is the question. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so of course, it is a very well-known fact that humans have unlimited needs, and but the planet has a certain limited capacity. So when we say planet has a limited capacity, it is not only referring to its productivity, or how much of resources it can produce, and how much the humans can consume. It's not as if humans on one side and the planet on the other side. Humans are also part of the planet. If human beings are consuming certain things which are being produced in the planet, but so also they are part of the planet, and they have to remember that they have a certain responsibilities towards the entire ecosystem which is existing in the planet. So that kind of a dichotomy is in fact what has caused this unequal and uneven type of development, where we seem to think that the planet's main goal is only to provide for human beings, which is of course not true. So COVID-19 has in fact shown us some of these things, that it is time for social change. How did it do that? Because during, let's say, a large part of the lockdown, when all of us stayed at home, what we realized was that we really didn't require so many things, that one could actually sustain on much less. And the kind of overconsumption that was happening, that was actually could be definitely altered. And also it showed that we need a lot of empathy, that because of helping each other during a pandemic was one of the ways in which we felt that we were more integrated into one humanity, rather than developed, less developed, poor, rich, and things like that. So when we build back better, so this is a terminology which has come because of COVID-19. We have to remember that we have just gone through a situation where we have realized that it is possible to have more sustainable economic practices and more sustainable consumption and production practices. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so another one of the very big resources which is facing a lot of stress is water. And it has been found that actually the whole of humanity's access is only 0.5% of the ecosystem for freshwater needs, especially because so much of it is locked up either as saline water in the oceans or as frozen water, fresh water in Antarctica, Antarctica and glaciers. But what we don't seem to realize is that with such less access and availability, we are still polluting waters in the rivers and lakes. And so what does this entire terminology mean? Nature can recycle. So that is something that, people don't seem to uh, realize, even though one is taught in schools and colleges and institutions, and whether you are from the science background or from humanities background or any other background, one is taught several times through one's education that nature has come with a certain capacity to address some of the things that it has made. Like, for instance, when we say recycle, or you can say circular economy, or you can say, into a circular method of reusing, we are basically referring to the fact that the biological systems have come with certain types of enzymes or certain types of conditions under which the same minerals or resources or whatever the carbon, the hydrogen, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the sulfur, it keeps on circulating. But we also have to behave in such a way to make it easier for the earth to do so, because each one of us, whether we are living or non-living, is made of these kind of minerals, and unless we make it conducive for the planet to use its circular technologies, it is basically a technology that it has created, it will not happen that naturally. If we keep on putting some kind of a hurdle for the earth to hinder this process, the circularity process, then we find that it doesn't recycle that easily, and then we need something that is not available to us. I will, of course, explain this with a few examples in the other slides. So, as I said, water is also one of the most important resources, and as the population grows, we will have to manage this resource very carefully. Otherwise, we will be put into a lot of difficulties. Next, please. So, water use has also been, like I said, that in the human economy, agriculture, which forms a very important part of our economic activity, uses very high, 69%. Is it really required? No. There are many examples and experiments which have shown that this can be controlled and this can be utilized even for agriculture and aquaculture and livestock and everything, which gives us the food security in a way that we don't waste so much of water. Similarly, industry, and similarly in our own households. So, with so many 2 billion people in countries experiencing very high water stress, and so much of water getting polluted, or even with situations like floods or droughts, we find that the improper use of water is killing more people than, because of the kind of damages that we have done, and because we have not aligned ourselves to the circular method that the planet uses for these kind of resources. Next, please. Is the same thing with energy. Energy also is something, it has always been considered that, energy is the driver for economy, and also that developing countries have to ape their Western counterparts or their developed counterparts, and only then they can achieve the kind of economic development. But that is not true, and it has been shown now over and over again that there are ways in which energy can be utilized, and energy can be produced and utilized in such a way that this better development or even more sustainable development can be achieved with lesser carbon footprint. I'm going to be explaining that also. And waste and other things are also going to play an important role in this aspect. Next, please. So energy use and stress also can cause a tremendous amount of stress. In our country, for instance, we need energy for agriculture, for industry, for lighting, for heating, for cooking. And all this actually, if we follow the old systems and the only way conventional systems, it will become very, very difficult, because we have got a lot of people in the lower economic strata who may not have access for that kind of energy, either generation or for access or for usage. But there are other methods, and it has been proven over and over again. And in fact, in our country, we need to leapfrog and show that we can achieve access and utilization of clean energy, and also fulfill the aspirations of our country people. Next, please. Food and nutrition, that is a very important aspect, because climate change is not only having so many impacts like increase in temperature, or heat waves, or floods, or rise in sea level, or extreme weather events, and frequency of extreme weather events. It is also having an impact on the nutrition in the food itself. So that is something also, in fact, in the current discussions and debates which are going on farm reformation, that is something that one needs to make sure, because in our country, even as this thing as like even yesterday's newspaper showed that there are so many people in our country, so many children especially, who are faced with malnutrition and inadequate nutrition. That is even cereal deficiency and also protein deficiency. So we have to remember that for us, the food sector, the debate is not yet over, and we have to ensure that food is available, which is inexpensive, good quality, and which is conducive and suitable for our children as well as the lower economic strata. Next, please. So coming to the waste management aspect, in our country, the erstwhile Planning Commission and the current Niti Aayog has said that we are generating almost 62 million tons in 2014, but by now it is almost over 70 million tons we are generating annually. Although the average generation looks like it is only 110 grams, but actually we are, if you see in a metropolitan city like Delhi or Mumbai or Calcutta or Chennai or Bengaluru or any of these places, we find that we are generating almost a kg or 2 kgs per person per day. So we do find that with Swachh Bharat Mission and several other such schemes, definitely the waste collection has no doubt improved, but waste processing is still only at about 28%. And we still are going towards a better and better method of not only waste collection, but processing and also management, so that we don't create those huge mountains of waste deposit like Gazipur or Thalaswar, Okla, or Bandwari, or any of these other huge mountains, or even in Mumbai, Devnar and various other kind of huge garbage mountains. Next, please. So what happens with inappropriate waste management, and you just go and dump it? We call it landfills actually, but these are not landfill, they are only dump sites. The reason is that they don't have any lining, and it has been done without any proper planning or without any proper protection to the soil or to the aquifers. So on the left-hand side, you see the photograph of just simply dumping. That's how it starts. And on the right-hand side, you see what really happens. Because in our country, I'll be showing you the graph also, that we are largely generating garbage or municipal waste or solid waste, whatever you call it, as having very high quantities of biodegradable or compostable matter. And when along with other non-biodegradable like plastics or construction and demolition waste or any of these other things, you dump it together, the wet waste or the kitchen waste or the biodegradable waste has a tendency to go below that non-biodegradable waste, and that creates an anaerobic atmosphere, that is absence of oxygen. Methane is generated naturally, and being an explosive gas, it comes out and it is explosive, it highly inflammable, catches fire, and while it is burning, it burns all the other stuff like plastics and e-waste and everything, and therefore you have a lot of volatile organic compounds in the air. You have heavy metals and you have dioxins and everything going up in the air because of this process. So as you can see, it is causing soil pollution, air pollution. May I have the next slide, please? And now water pollution as well. Because even after you, dump it and you may trommel it, like trommeling meaning sieving, if you will only get non-compostable quantities which are like highly degraded plastics or some kind of textiles, which don't degrade. And on the other side, you get something called leachate, which is like a decoction. When the rainwater or any water or its own wet, because most of the biodegradable compostable matter has very high percentage of moisture, almost up to 50 to 60%. So it extracts all the heavy metals and all the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and then comes out in the bottom and very often goes into not only surface water bodies, but into groundwater bodies. And some of the researchers, even my own PhD students, have shown that many of the groundwater aquifers very close, within 5 kilometers radius of or 10-kilometer radius of these kind of dump sites, are contaminated with a lot of contraries, including heavy metals and polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Next, please. So you have soil, water, and air pollution. And therefore, solid waste is causing, one is, of course, its carbon footprint, because methane and nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide, especially, you get because of spontaneous, whenever anything burns and the temperatures go very high, you can get nitrous oxide spontaneously. It pollutes subsoil water, it blocks drainage, it causes air pollution and soil pollution as well. So as you can see, solid waste which is inappropriately managed can really cause a lot of climate change issues, and actually create a lot of problems for us. Next, please. What do we see? Why is it that it is being mismanaged? What is the value chain of waste in India? We find that there are waste generators. Each one of us is a waste generator. If you read the Solid Waste Management Rules 2016, it clearly defines that waste generator is anybody and everybody. Every single citizen is a waste generator. And all it's being done is that it is being collected. Sometimes a little bit of dry waste is removed, but the rest of it is going in, being dumped in a landfill. There are informal waste pickers who used to be called as rack pickers, and today they are called as waste collectors. Some of them have been given a little bit of identity, etc. But these informal waste pickers who actually eke out their livelihoods from waste, they actually contribute to almost 15 to 20% of the recovery of material from waste, and they actually go and give it to various types of industries which use it. Can be aluminum, it can be paper, glass, metal, rubber, textiles, and even including plastics. And so these are in fact utilized by several of the industries for meeting their resource needs. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so the key gaps in inefficiency in the value chain is basically lack of awareness, lack of empathy, lack of segregation. And although we keep on saying reduce, reuse, recycle, and we in India are so great, and we have been doing all this recycling and all that for so long, and we are so fantastic and all that, but that's not the truth. The truth is that most of the people in India don't seem to really understand that they have to do much more They can't just be relying on saying that, our waste pickers are so good and, they take 15% of the waste. If in fact, each one of us contributed, each one of us showed our responsibility, we can recover much more, not just 15 or 20% because of some poor waste collector with absolutely no wherewithal or no facility. Trying to recover 15 to 20%, we can recover something like 80%, 90%. So, just, sort of creating this, myth that we are recycling 60% and all those kind of things, which very, very poor quality recycling, that is actually not something to be proud of, unfortunately. So all we have done is that we have managed to create so many landfills, and our informal waste pickers are being subject to inhuman conditions for sorting and segregating, and we have been absolutely downright, I can say, unempathetic, unsympathetic towards any kind of people who are actually trying to do their work. And on top of that, we keep trying to ape certain aspirations which we feel is, we need to achieve. Because, we see our friends or relatives in other countries, living in grand style. So unfortunately, we really need to look into our own conscience and ask ourselves whether we are doing enough. And the answer will be that no, we are not doing enough. And all we are doing is very, very poor quality waste recycling. Next, please. So this is the famous Gazipur Landfill and that accident site, where just behind the Gazipur Landfill, there are two canals, Indian canals, and how on that particular day in 2015, when there was an accident and people lost lives, and there was like a loss of property and all that. And it was because of an explosion that happened, and that explosion was because of the methane. And as I said, it's an explosive gas, it's an inflammable gas. And even today, or even a few days ago, the same kind of explosion happened, maybe at a lesser scale. But despite the fact that, they are doing some amount of trommeling, and which is also, we don't know whether it's a safe method, because there is so much of fungal spores which are being set into the air because of the trommeling. Trommeling means sieving. It's a circular sieve. And therefore, on one side, you're doing trommeling and removing and, trying to reuse the grit and reuse some of the, and putting the plastics into the waste to energy. On the other hand, you're continuing to dump the fresh waste with a whole lot of organic matter, again causing the same kind of explosion. Next, please. Also the plastics, even when I was doing my MPhil, which was way back, some 20, 25 years ago, even then we were able to point out from the research work that plastics are a generic term, and there are different types of plastics, and many of the plastics are not really required, and only certain plastics which are really required for very urgent use, either in medical use, like a heart valve or a prosthetic, or in aviation where you need light and strong material or something like that. It should not become a ubiquitous material. Unfortunately, it did, and it is being used as a single-use plastic, and because of which you can see, when I said that, human beings are interfering with the natural circularity of the earth, this is exactly what I meant. If you have a situation like this, even if the earth wanted to clean that water which is underneath and make it in such a way that its BOD, COD is reduced and the water becomes somewhat cleaner, you're not allowing it, because all these plastics are on top, so neither the sunlight nor the air can reach those parts, and no amount of enzymes which are present in the atmosphere or in the water can do anything to clean that water. So this is what I meant, that we ourselves are creating situations in such a way that the earth's circularity is not being allowed. Next, please. So this is what we found when it was part of my MPhil dissertation, and further thesis was on life cycle route of plastic waste. And this cycle looks as if, we are doing a tremendous job by recycling plastics. But actually what this cycle is indicating is that because of, we have let the informal sector completely do what they want. And, you cannot blame them. I'm not blaming them either. All I'm saying is that because we have not put in our minds and heads as to what is actually happening, what is that plastic, what is PVC, what is polystyrene, what is HDPE, and what is actually happening to it, we are allowing the plastics to recycle within our system. And some of the plastics have become so toxic that it is coming back to us. And many of the deadly diseases which we find in the community, a lot of it can be attributed to our negligence of a material which can accumulate, highly toxic material and give it back to us. And because it doesn't degrade and it stays in the environment for a very, very long time, we are actually subjecting ourselves to extreme danger. Next, please. And so actually this pamphlet was published by the Center for Environment Education way back. It was first time published in 1998 with the help of the Delhi government at that time. And then it became, we published it several times over. And we were able to show that the thermoplastic recycling, including high density polyethylene and low density polyethylene, can actually absorb polyaromatic hydrocarbons from the whatever the content which was stored in it, like lube oil or petroleum or pesticides or fertilizers or any of these kind of hazardous substances. It goes into the plastic. It comes as part of a recyclate, and when the recyclate is used for making, let's say, carry bags or water bottles or tiffin boxes for children or for buckets, it actually leaches out in that either food or beverage or water, and it gets circulated. And this kind of making of recyclates is so common, and we have primary recyclate, secondary recyclate, tertiary, and then it goes on, and this accumulates. Just like how we have to understand what is the meaning of bioaccumulation, this is plastic accumulation. Accumulation of heavy metals, because during the recycling process, they use highly toxic and hazardous chemicals, which are especially pigments and dyes, which have got yellow pigment might have something like lead chromate, or some other black or something might have mercury. And so cadmium, red might have cadmium, like that. There are any types, and these keep on accumulating. And with every use of the the carry bags or any of these other recycling material, that is why in 1999 the first set of plastic rules which came out, it banned the use of these recycled products for packaging of food and beverage. However, you can see that even today the Sabjiwala brings it. Of course, it is colorless, and it is believed that it is non-recycled and it is virgin. But even virgin plastic, if it is not polymerized properly, it will have any number of monomers floating around. And when it is not at all required, and you can take your bag and go and get the vegetable from downstairs. Why are you why are you taking it from that? And even the COVID-19 virus survives much longer on a plastic. But even then we continue to do it. So it is something, after 20, 25 years, it has not been implemented. Next, please. As you can see, another very important thing which we have been accused of is, the contribution of plastics in marine environment. We have been told that there is a lot of leakage of plastics into marine environment. This is primarily because in many of the Western countries, they say that they are recycling. All they do is that they separate it, bale it, and then ship it off to India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Bangladesh, and various other places. And imported plastics, even as early as the early part of the century, we were importing were able to point out that India was having these small recycling units in 6x4 and 6x10 kind of area, where almost 5 times, 6 times of what we were using at that time was being recycled and at full capacity. And so today what is happening is, because of the ban of using recycled plastics in our country for beverage, food, packaging and various other things, all these imported plastics, where do they come from? It is because we have this very strange exempt policy. If you export something in a container, in that same ship container, you can import plastic or any other waste. So it comes, then it is full of hazardous plastics, and then you cannot recycle it, and then it is released into oceans and various other. And that is one of the reasons why we are today one of the largest countries in the world leaking plastic waste into the marine environment. Next, please. So what is most important is the consumer's role. If, if people, instead of, trying to congratulate themselves all the time saying that, we are such brilliant recyclers and we have always been like this and we have been, instead of that, look into your conscience and ask yourself, are you doing enough? Are you even separating your wet waste from dry waste? Are you even saying that no to plastics? All this has been told in the media, in policies, by the government, by non-governmental organizations, by everybody. But what are you doing? If each one of us remembers that, our role, smallest role, like for instance, you are told, use a cloth mask for preventing COVID-19. But you still want to use a disposable mask. Why? Nobody knows. A cloth mask can be washed any number of times. You can change it, and once you finish using it, you nicely wash it, and you can even snip it off, and then it can be used even as a duster or something like that. And you can use a new mask. But what happens to a disposable mask? You can use it only a certain number of times. It is made out of PAN or polyacrylate nitrile, and then you have to discard it. And if you have not properly kept it for 72 hours and discarded it, it can transmit disease. It can cause, and it will remain non-biodegradable forever, and then it goes into the landfill. What is the use? Or it will be burnt. That's even worse. So next, please. Role of a consumer is very important. E-waste also is in the same condition in our country. We have, this is a place in Shastri Park. Even though Delhi, in city of Delhi, you cannot do any recycling at all, and not even hardly dismantling. But these kind of informal sectors are existent everywhere in Delhi, several places in Delhi. And the pollution control system, whatever that is partly able to address them, partly not able to address them. They use a high very concentrated acids, alkalis, various methods, burning and open burning, and they try to recover, and they manage to recover hardly 10% of the precious metals, whether it is copper or apparent gold or apparent silver, very little. Whereas the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has already put in a lot of effort and found out methods, electrophoretic methods, by which you can, sort of recover a lot of percentage of the precious metals, and also make sure that the plastics, which contain a lot of polybrominated, flame retardants, are not causing harm. And case by case, it can be sent to either Umicore or Singapore to recover more precious metals and rare earths. Next, please. As part of my postdoc in Berkeley, we worked on the e-waste recycling, and sustainable e-waste recycling has been this thing. So this is one of the parts of the new economy which I was talking about. Make a dismantleable, your entire design. I'm not saying that one should not use digital media. It is going to come again and again, and it is going to be the most useful thing with the climate change and pandemics happening and all that. But at the same time, we have to refurbish our economy itself in such a way that the designers, manufacturers, retailers, everybody plays a part, and we make it in such a way that it is dismantleable and reusable and recyclable without causing imprint. That is the responsible consumption production that we were talking about. Next, please. So what are the legislations? I'm not dealing with the entire history of the policy making. It is these are the rules which are directly guiding our solid waste management. And you can see here that solid waste, plastic waste, e-waste, biomedical waste, and construction demolition waste are the most important ones. Other than that, we have battery rules, we have got hazardous waste rules, we have got biotechnological rules, and so many others. But I am only dealing with these which are directly connected with the various waste that is generated in municipal and rural areas. Next, please. So, as I said, let us just see whether, regarding the energy requirement, we said that energy is being wasted. We also said that energy stress is being caused. But exactly what is the situation in our country? Let's talk about our country. The thing, it very clearly shows that energy in our country is quite adequate. We are generating adequate amount of energy. Our biggest problem is access to energy. So, and also we have got good policies about renewable energy and about, we have a national electricity policy. We have the roadmap to Electricity Act 2003. So many things we already have. Next, please. So actually, most of our, energy generation facilities are only running at 64% capacity. That is because we don't have purchasing power amongst the users. And also the distribution is in such a way that there is lot of energy loss, transmission loss, almost up to 40%. Now, slowly it is being reduced and it has come down to about 18% with certain amount of policy changes, etc. But you can see that it is not the incapacity to generate electricity, but it is the incapacity to purchase or use. And we have to see what is the reason. Let us analyze what is the reason. Next, please. So the most important thing is that, it is not that the demand is less, but if you have a lot of theft and if you have discoms which are not paid for such a long time, or if you are generating electricity from a source which is going to be terribly expensive, and therefore, people are not able to purchase it. And so all these things put together, you find that 1/3 of the country is still not electrified, or even if they are electrified, they do not have actual access to electricity or energy or any form of energy. Next, please. So here you can see that this is a data of 2013, but even if you do it, recently, it is not going to be very different. The thing is that whether it is rural, urban, or whatever it is, some of the states which are actually endowed with a lot of resources for generating electricity, they are the ones who are having less amount of access. And this is happening because, uh, uh, progressively, conventional energy generating methods are becoming more and more expensive, whether it is coal or whether it is hydroelectric or whether it is nuclear or whether it is any of these other forms. They are all becoming exceedingly expensive. And therefore, the renewable energy which is coming into the milieu, that is can actually solve the problem. For that, you need a lot of facilitation and policies in such a way that this can happen. Next, please. I forgot to mention biomass. That is also one of the conventional. Even though it comes under non-conventional or new and renewable energy, I'll tell you what are the problems with that as well. So per capita electrical consumption is still among the lowest in the BRICS nation. But we find that our footprint is not that low. Although we can see that, through the Ujjwala program, and the Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana and etc., many villages are now getting electrified. But a survey which has been released very recently by ASSOCHAM and PwC, etc., it shows that the India's power deficit is only rising. It's not falling. So we really need to find out why this is happening and what can be done to address this. Next, please. So one is, of course, solar energy. There is a lot of talk about solar energy, which is exceedingly good. And because of especially several policies, and also the fact that the International Solar Alliance is placed in our country, in Gurgaon, in fact, it is it has really helped a lot in pushing forward this particular type of energy source. And today you get power at rupees 2 a kilowatt hour from solar sources. Next, please. Okay, so the Renewable Energy 2017 report, which has been brought out, and especially TERI and other organizations have been involved in it. The report estimates that the new power generation capacity could be all renewables. When you say renewables, it is not only solar, it is also wind, it is also biogas, it is also it is also biomass. So and also, like yesterday or day before's newspaper, you might have seen, Delhi is going to have the largest inverter based technology, which is the BESS, which is the battery energy backup. That is also another method. Next, please. Okay, so it is also said that, everybody knows that under UNFCCC and several other commitments, in fact, this is the 5th year of the commemoration of the Paris Act, that we have to do something within 10 years or 15 years at the maximum to bring the footprint down to 1.5 degrees Celsius increase of temperature. Otherwise, the whole world is going to be faced with, like even at COVID times, we have had more than 4 cyclones or several weather events and several heat waves, several forest fires, and various other climate change impacts. If we don't limit the increase in temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the poor people in this world will be faced with tremendous amount of difficulty. So we have to do something. And how are we going to do this? Is through this method of using completely renewables. In this direction, India, of course, has put forward a very important thing about 175 gigawatt energy through renewables. In fact, the Prime Minister talking about it in the just the day before yesterday said that we can achieve, by 2030, even what is expected better of us. I mean, more than, and we can become carbon neutral by 2047. Next, please. So exactly how are we going to do it? Just now, if you see, by 2016, the energy mix of India was largely coal and oil and a little bit of natural gas and nuclear energy and renewables and other things. But this is now the thing is changing. Let's look at the next graph. Next. This is the world energy mix, where you can see that their dependence on coal and oil is reducing. Their use of natural gas is increasing, and also other renewables and other methods is slowly increasing. So how can we also go towards this kind of an energy mix? Next, please. So it can be analyzed that even though in India we have the share of coal is very high, and but what is really happening? One has to see it today. Some of these large coal companies, which are both under central government and privatized, what we see are they are automatically shutting down. Why are they shutting down? Because even with the least amount, that is a lot of the coal workers, if you know, they are all informal sector, despite the fact that there has not been much institutionalization except in the government sector. These mines are becoming, coal mines are becoming unproductive. And the private sector, we talk about, there is a phenomenon, there is an activity which we all have to undertake, especially the government, which is called as just transition. Just transition means that from coal-based and some of the conventional based going towards renewable, you are going to have a lot of change. That is, those same people who are working in one sector cannot work naturally in the other sector. They need another set of skills. So how are you going to rehabilitate them? How are you going to get them skilled in the other ways? And how is that institutionalization going to happen? That is called as just transition. But in our country, because there are lots of private players, they may not undertake these kind of things and they will just leave it and run away. And that is happening. And that is causing a lot of hunger and destitution in many parts of the country where coal is the only method by which energy is being generated. Similarly, private companies which are being forced to fund hydroelectric, which is also quite expensive, almost 6 rupees a kilowatt hour, they are also not able to sustain it. And in fact, many of our dams require looking after. They need dredging, they need proper renovation. So how are we going to do that, those kind of things? That is the most important. So natural gas, which has got a good potential, not only because we have a lot of sources of natural gas, but we can also produce natural gas. Let us see how we are going to do that. Next, please. So the share of natural gas, in the primary mix, how we are going to bring it, it is not only by India's LNG imports, etc., but also how we ourselves can do the regasification in the coming years. Next, please. So urbanization is happening. We are currently 31% urbanized and will become 51% by 2047. And obviously urban life requires more energy, but it can also give access to cleaner energy, and we can have more efficient electrical appliances. And this is something that we really need to focus on. Next, please. So very often I've heard people saying, oh, India doesn't have any energy and therefore, we have to burn all our waste, and waste to energy is the only method by which we are going to meet, which is, unfortunate. We have tried to analyze, and, there are any number of organizations in Delhi like ICRI or ICRIAR or several organizations which have put their minds and this thing and have shown that waste to energy, unfortunately, because of the mixed waste that we are generating and waste to energy incineration by burning is proving to be extremely unviable and non-feasible and economically stupid thing to do. Because first and foremost, we need more than 1500 kilocalories, and mixed waste, as I already told you, it contains a lot of high moisture, 50 to 60% moisture, biodegradable material, and it is totally unsuitable for incineration. And being mixed, there is no other go. It is, there you need a huge amount of human resources, electrical resources to first separate, to remove the various contraries, and only the fluff and that material which can burn, that has to be separated. And a lot of it, again, about 50 to 60% goes back to the landfill. And only that fluff RDF is then put into the boiler and it is burnt. And for that also you need very high quality air pollution devices, because many of the incinerable material are things like plastics, etc., which can generate dioxins, and therefore you need air pollution devices to control that. Next, please. Of course, it can go into cement plants, but they have their own issues. I'll let you know. Waste to energy, this is the Gazipur plant, the RDF being made. And as you can see here, it's a huge plant. It is just making some 12 megawatt electricity. And it is processing something like 1200 to 1500 tons of waste, half of which goes back to the Gazipur landfill, because as I told you, it is not burnable, and very capital intensive, and lots of air pollution devices, which is which has almost eaten into the profits of the particular entity. Next, please. So of course, these are the turbines, and the leakage treatment has to be done because you're taking mixed waste, as I said. So a lot of capital expenditure has to be put into place into these kind of waste to energy incineration plants. Next, please. So therefore, what we have found is that many of the waste to energy incineration plants which were put in several places in the country stopped working, and these particular ones in Delhi are working only because in Delhi we do not segregate waste at source, and a lot of mixed waste is there, and the government, because they do not have the any other choice, so they are still continuing to use it, and a lot of the operational cost, which is coming to almost rupees 13 to 14 per kilowatt hour, is being actually spent by the government. Because even after the electricity law, nobody is, after the subsidy also, nobody is willing to buy electricity at 7 rupees, 8 rupees per kilowatt hour when you can get, when discoms can purchase it at 2 rupees, 3 rupees from either solar or biogas or any of these other sources of electricity. Next, please. So as I have already said, the composition of waste in our country, whether it's north, south, east, west, northeast, anywhere, it is more than 50% is biodegradable or compostable, which means that the moisture content is more than 50 to 60%. And hardly the burnable waste, if you leave out the inerts, is hardly 15 to 20%, and only that can actually go into an incineration plant. Next, please. And also we see that all these, when you talk about waste to energy, if you have mixed composting plants, mixed waste composting plants, or RDF based waste to energy, many of them are not working because they are not. But biomethanation plants, as you can see, are beginning to thrive. Let's see why. Next, please. So you can see that waste to energy plants, I don't want to again and again say the tariff rates of these projects are very high, 12 to 13% per unit or kilowatt hour. That is their main problem. This is the main problem as to why they are not able to sustain. Next, please. Okay, so even though the incentives have been given, they are not being bought by the discoms, and so that is one of the reasons why they are not taking off, or economically they are not viable. They can be considered as waste management, and only in cities where segregation is very poor and mixed waste is landing up in the landfills. Next, please. And the environmental and health effects from these kind of plants is very high. So despite the housekeeping is miserable, because the mixed waste entails that people have to use their hands to separate it. The odor, the visual pollution, if you just happen to go to any of these plants, Gazipur or Jindal or any of these plants, you can actually experience it yourself. And as I said, more than 40 to 50% goes back to the landfill. So many of them are running at, 10 days, 15 days downtime in a month. So, and very less capacity is being utilized. Next, please. And therefore, managing waste at the landfills also, as I said, is a very big issue because of the byproducts. And it is all because of the non-segregation of waste at source by our generators. Next, please. And even the ash is unsuitable. Ash is highly toxic, and dioxins and furans have been found in the ash of the incinerators. So not suitable for making even bricks. So in Germany and Sweden, very often you hear, say, oh, the incineration plants are in the middle of the city. That is because their segregation is so good. And also their non-biodegradables are very high. And they have got very, very high quality. If you just see what is the capital expenditure of the Hitachi plant that is there in Sweden, we cannot even imagine. Today, even some of the technologies like the Gazipur plant, which is supposed to be EU compliant, is more than 400 to 500 crores. So only very big cities like cosmopolitan cities can afford it. Small cities, in fact, in our country, we have got only 500 cities which are 100,000 and plus, 1 lakh plus population. Hardly 53 cities are the 1 million population and above. Hardly 10 cities are more than 10 million population. And 3,500 statutory cities are very small, 50,000, 20,000. Generating something like 50 tons, 20 tons, 10 tons. They don't have the wherewithal to put up an incineration plant of 400 crores and running operational cost at 13 rupees a kilowatt hour. They don't have that. So what we require is something that is doable by our cities. And many of our census towns are even smaller, 5,000, 10,000 population. So they cannot afford, and waste to energy is a unviable and uneconomical technology. Next, please. Therefore, we need alternatives. And so we really need to think what are the other alternatives. Biomethanation is an extremely good, viable, feasible alternative, which can be done even in small cities, because biomethanation technologies you can have from very small to big. Next, please. Approach to the SWM rules 2016 is based on all these things above, which has been shown. Next, please. So first thing is waste hierarchy. It says that prevention is very important. Reduction, reuse, recycling, recovery, and then disposal. Next, please. This is the famous pyramid, where today we are doing very little waste reduction and very high dumping in the landfill and a little bit of waste to energy. Today, the Niti Aayog and the erstwhile Planning Commission have redefined what is waste to energy. Today, waste to energy encompasses not just incineration, but also biomethanation, gasification, also converting plastics to fuel oil, and even composting is considered, vermicomposting are being considered as part of waste to energy, as long as there is potential or embedded energy in it. Next, please. We need to invert this pyramid. So this is a chart that we made at NIUA when I was a professor there. And as you can see, this is a pictorial representation of the 2016 rules. This is exactly what the rules say, that segregate wet biodegradable at source, dry recyclable, domestic hazardous waste. And now because of COVID, now we are also having domestic healthcare waste and then construction demolition waste. What are the technology choices? One is biomethanation followed by composting, or directly composting for biodegradable. You can earn revenue. That green color mudra is indicative of the fact that you can earn revenue. Same way with non-biodegradable, separate them, sell it to the different industries, and you can again generate revenue. Domestic hazardous waste is where you have to have some investment, because it has some of the things like paints and batteries and some of the hazardous substances have to go to the hazardous landfill site, or what is known as TSDF. And that is regional. Domestic healthcare waste also needs investment, because a lot of it has to go to the common biomedical waste facilities, or they may go to a similar kind of a facility which may be kept in an integrated municipal waste facility, but it needs investment. Construction demolition waste, again, very little investment. Initially, there is a little bit of capital, but otherwise 95% recovery is possible. The Supreme Court Annex, as you know, has been built with construction demolition waste recycled products. And today it is also part of bylaws, building bylaws. Next, please. The bulk generator also, it says that, things like, if you have more than 5,000 square meters, or if you generate more than 100 kgs per day, or and ULB can define, it can be even 30 kgs per day or 20 kgs per day. Mandis or large kitchens, slaughterhouses, gardens, they should actually come together and generate the biomethanation. That is what is now required, and they have been told also that they are organic matter or their biocompostable matter will not be taken by the municipality, and they have to make the necessary investment and the production. So that is also happening, and this requires less investment and much higher revenue potential is there, because you can earn both from the gas and from the compost that you make out of the slurry. Next, please. So as you can see here, this is in Delhi in Moti Bagh, and this is a kitchen waste which is collected, which is ground, added with some inoculum and composted, and the compost is used for their own landscaping. Next, please. This is even the garden waste is being pelletized and it is sold to the boilers and brick kilns, while the softer part is composted. Next, please. This is in La Meridian Hotel as a big 5-star hotel, or even the next one, Taj Mansingh has a biogas plant. This is what is called as an in-vessel composter. So it is for a 1-ton plant. On one side, you keep putting the ground wet waste from the kitchen, add some inoculum, add some garden, soft waste, and then it is got an aerobic system. It's a drum. It keeps rotating, and by first 30 days you get no compost. After that you get compost every day, and you can use it for your landscape. You can sell it back to the NDMC. So there are many methods. Next, please. These are biogas plants. The left one is in the Tihar Jail, and the right one is in one of the railway stations, are also in DMRC. These are methods by which either in a masonry structure or in a containerized structure, you can generate 100% segregated biocompostable or biodegradable kitchen waste and a little bit of soft garden waste, and you can produce biogas. And this is being shown to be quite viable, and they either reuse it in the kitchen or you can also produce electricity from it. Next, please. So the urban local bodies have been told that their main duties is to make sure that segregation happens at source, and especially sanitary waste, which may be highly hazardous, that has to be separated. Highly and toxic like batteries and paints and LED, even LEDs, even CFLs and mercury tube lights, they have to be separated compostable material, because there is only 3 to 5% it comes to. And the rest of it has to be segregated. The recyclables can go to the recycling units, and the biodegradable, which is more than 50 to 60% in many of our cities, that should go for biomethanation and composting. Next, please. So here you can see how, with user charges being levied. This is an example in Ambikapur, but it can be any city. Councillors, elected representatives, they make sure that you can see this lady is giving a receipt, that you collect the user charges even from small vendors, and you carry on your activities. Next, please. This is Indore, where again, any amount of IEC is being done to tell people exactly how. This is all part of Swachh Bharat mission, which was carried out in the last 4-5 years. Next, please. This is Ambikapur again. You can see SHG groups with women with PPE have been given these kind of lightly motorized vehicles, where they collect the dry waste, wet waste, and the domestic hazardous waste and sanitary waste in a separate way. Next, please. And then, this is in Indore, slightly bigger trucks. They are also used for collecting dry waste, wet waste, and domestic hazardous waste and the sanitary waste in such a way that all of the streams can be treated separately. Next, please. And the municipal workers are trained. And informal sector is also integrated into this, because they are very important part. They have been playing an important part. They have knowledge and they have to be integrated. Next, please. You can see here, they are very often migrants, and they are also from, you can say somewhat climate refugees or rural refugees, and they need a lot of integration into this sector. Next, please. This is also a social issue. So the important thing is to give them identity cards and give them certain amount of protective gear, better facilities, better housing, better access to water and sanitation. That is extremely important, because they are a very good workforce, especially when it comes to these kind of work like collection, segregation, and transportation. Next, please. And you know that is happening even in Pune or Bengaluru or several parts of the country. It is happening. Again, you can see bulk waste generator of dry waste like a big mall or even an industrial estate. You can separate all this: leather, textiles, rubber, paper, glass, metal, multi-layered plastics, tires, and all this can actually yield revenue. And investment is there because some parts of it, like I said, very hazardous and toxic plastics cannot be recycled, and some hazardous waste that has to go to TSDF or the secured landfill, which, as you know, is a regional facility which is now coming up in most states. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here you can see the other thing about the solid waste management rules 2016 is about MRF, material recovery facility. Here the all the workers have been provided with PPE. So even in COVID times, if it is, the guidelines have been given to, I'm not dealing with that particular aspect today as to what guidelines, but July 17th, 2020, the Central Pollution Control Board has given the final guidelines as to how, except for masks and gloves, which need to be cut and kept for 72 hours and given, and all the biomedical waste, which are, from COVID positive patients, all other things like wrappers and all that, they can be just kept for 48 hours or 72 hours in their own houses, even from a COVID positive household, and given to MRFs. And so you can see here that these can be sent to different places for either recycling or putting it into cement kilns if they are not recyclable. Next, please. So finally, we are proposing that this probably today it only exists as a waste to energy plant or as dump site or something like that. But what we are proposing from both NIUA and from PHFI, etc., is that there should be a common solid waste treatment facility where even sanitary waste, because even in COVID times, what happened was, despite we have 200 common biomedical waste facilities with proper education training of the healthcare establishments. And we have 162 tons per day of COVID waste being generated in our country till November, or rather December 4th, we have got data. More than 4,800 tons of COVID-based biomedical waste has been treated in our 198 common biomedical waste facilities spread in all parts of the country except a few union territories. Despite that, we find that there is a lot of sanitary napkins and diapers and adult diapers which are now becoming very common, and therefore we might require, and NEERI is making some incinerators like that with proper pollution control equipment that can be put even in a common solid waste management facility, along with things like secured landfill and some of the e-waste separating facilities. And this is the model for that. Next, please. So construction demolition waste also, we have examples in our country. In Delhi, we have got 3 plants, and then there are more in other places. Of course, cities like Indore and Ujjain and other cities have, but now almost every city, Coimbatore and Chennai and up north also, there are several cities which are now having these plants, and they are finding it very useful because there is 95% recovery, and a lot of the material can be reused both in construction, sometimes in non-weight bearing, even partition walls and compound walls and paving blocks, etc., or sometimes even in proper replacement of materials. And even the Bureau of Indian Standards are being regulated for that. Next, please. So of course, what do we do with old landfill sites? As we have to we have to put in wells for removal of leachate. We have to put in wells for removal of this trapped methane. So all that has to be done. And as you can see, one section of Gazipur is being done, and then of course you spread soil, and then you put green cover, and make sure that constantly they are being monitored so that there is no explosion from these parts. They are not good for constructing because there will be subsidence, but it can be at least that there will be no dust and other pollutants coming from it. Next, please. And the Government of India has now given, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, given a lot of incentives for making biogas and biomethanation. And even today's newspaper carries, what are the kind of incentives that are being given for natural gas manufacture in our country. Next, please. And even the guidelines from these very clearly show that we want to go towards mention. Next, please. Even the guidelines issued, it says, how do you make biogas from various types of biomass in the country, whether it is industrial, agricultural, urban, and how to make it, and what are the kind of incentives that are being given for these kind of projects. Next, please. So just now, as I said, that we have got a lot of potential, and people realize that other than wind, solar, and tidal energy and various other energy, biomass, etc., we from segregated biocompostable matter from urban solid waste or even solid waste from rural areas, there is a lot of potential to make natural gas, or you can say compressed natural gas, or you can call it as methane. Next, please. And the technologies in our country also improving continuously. It is a very safe method because initially it is completely covered. Next, please. And its advantages, it can be mixed with, things like cow dung from dairy, and it can be mixed with soft horticultural waste also, and it can be mixed with kitchen waste and highly cooking waste. And you can use it both for cooking, lighting, heating, making electricity. Of course, by making electricity, you lose almost 30% energy because the conversion rate is such that. But despite that, if you use it as bio-CNG, you remove the hydrogen sulfide in it, remove the carbon dioxide by a process called scrubbing. You can use it as fuel for your vehicles. And that is one of the biggest footprints in our country and also source of pollution in our urban areas. So that way it addresses both, and it's highly efficient as a bio-CNG. Next, please. As you can see, market waste, so much of waste comes out. This is the kind of thing. Next, please. Yeah, so this is the first plant which was in Coimbatore in Chennai, Asia's largest vegetable and fruit market. And it is generating almost 60 tons of waste, and it's almost producing approximately 30 megawatts of electricity, which goes into the grid. Of course, that is using BIMA technology, which is Swedish technology, but it is it has had problems, but it is currently running and it is producing electricity. Next, please. And you can have community type of projects. There are people, even in just outside Delhi, who are making this biogas or compressed natural gas and selling it to commercial vehicles. And so policy and incentives together can actually make it into a startup or a viable economic activity. Next, please. This is the TERI, called as the team biomethanation technology. They use the, as a method of every day, the 7-day, it is called as the 7-day biodigester, and every day's waste goes in, and there is a net-like thing inside. And so from the leachate they produce, using UASB technology, they produce very rich biogas, almost with 70% efficiency. Next, please. And this is another Mayhem method. This has been used extensively in Pune and various western regions, including Bangalore, and it is being used for both street lighting as well as supplying biogas to residences. Next, please, for cooking, etc. You can see here the gas which is being supplied both for electricity. Next, please. For street lighting as well as. So this is what is known as scrubbing. And this has now become a national policy. And Mahindra actually tested this in Chengalpet, just outside Chennai first, in their own SEZs. And once it has become a success, now next, please. They have implemented it in Indore, and Indore is now using bio-CNG from all its mandis. And they themselves have put in investment, but they are able to get quite a lot of profit as well. because it is selling much cheaper than even diesel or even the CNG, which earlier was being used as an imported gas. So this is a very viable technology. Next, please. Again, various types of plastics, as I said, can be used for making roads and making it in such a way that it actually laminates the subbase and increases the life of the road. Next, please. But in the Niti Aayog report, it has also been said it can be converted into either diesel, petrol, or aromatics. And this is, some cities are now trying it. Indore has got a plant. Some other cities are also trying this. And it is also a possibility that it will be a viable project. Next, please. It has been patented by the Indian Institute of Petroleum at Dehradun, and they are also trying to use it for railways, etc. Next, please. And its viability, like, in very, very small places like Motibag and all, may not be so much because it produces both gas, diesel, as well as char. But despite that, they find it economically viable because to transport some of this waste becomes problematic. So they use some of the gas that is being produced for making tea or, use the fuel oil for some small operations within their campuses. Next, please. So you can see the gas and also it's a stove for running the, for making tea, etc. Next, please. So this is what has now been suggested as the method for all ULBs. And this is the kind of training that we have been doing also, that how there should be community engagement, IEC, we really need to sensitize the people as to why they need to segregate, in what way it will help them, it will increase the access, it will give them better, cleaner surroundings, and also it will help in managing the solid waste and reduce those big landfills and incineration and the dangers and hazards because of that. Next, please. And I think Dr. Arjun Kumar also wanted me to say what is happening in case of the water, because as I showed you in the consumption and responsible production and consumption, water is a very big resource. And what are we doing with the Yamuna? Next, please. As you know, 22 kilometers of the Yamuna runs in Delhi. From Pala or Tajiwala area, right up to the Okhla Barrage, we have the stretch of Yamuna, and it's highly polluted. It is not polluted only because of Delhi, but because, we receive the water from the neighboring state of Haryana, which is also discharging a lot of industrial and also agricultural wastewater, full of, in fact, almost at the entry point, if you take the quality of the waters in Yamuna, it is filled with organochlorine pesticides, very high levels of organochlorine pesticides, and also PFAS, and that is perfluoryl substances, which are also, there are different types of perfluoride substances, extremely toxic, extremely carcinogenic. Of course, in just hardly 2 days ago, the newspaper had that maybe the quality of Yamuna has improved because of NGT and because of monitoring and because of the National Mission for Clean Ganga in Yamuna. But unfortunately, during COVID times, up till May or something like that, the quality improved slightly because of the lockdown and there were no industries. But unfortunately, Delhi also being an industrial town, city, only other than being a capital, lot of untreated waste is also going from our effluent treatment plants, which are not properly running. And sewage is also going even today, even despite the fact that we have got so many sewage treatment plants, untreated sewage is also going into the Yamuna. Next, please. As you can see, the main source of pollution is the sewage and also the unsewered and the sewered areas, dumping of solid waste. Again, you can see that. So solid waste is really proving to be a very big problem. You go to the Nizamuddin despite the fact that there are meshes on both sides, people make little holes and keep throwing all sorts of samagri, puja samagri and this samagri and all that. Despite the fact that there are so many cities in the country which have shown how the puja samagri can be actually taken in some urns, you know, by the side of the river, not being put into the river. So many examples are there. And even there are so many ways in which, even the immersion of idols can be done within a community. It can be designed in such a way that they don't have pollutants. But despite that, in Yamuna, this is continuing to happen. Industrial pollution of conformed and non-conforming industries. There are several industries in the Laldora area which are not governed by the DPCC, and they actually put their pollutants, you know, this especially MSMEs, into borewells, so that it completely damages both the underground water and the Yamuna, because a lot of the water in the Yamuna comes from these various drains and also from some of the very close aquifers to the Yamuna. And next, please. And also lack of dilution, because most of the water that enters Yamuna is only the sewage, because almost 99% of the water is taken away for agriculture. And if you really see the Yamuna canal which enters Delhi, it's almost like a dry bed. So there is no minimum flow which is being maintained, and because of which the flow is very less. And if the flow is less, the natural quality of a river for aeration, for reducing the BOD, COD, that is completely reduced. And if you keep on putting only untreated sewage into it, the Yamuna does not have any wherewithal or any method by which it can clean itself. And therefore, the sediments are highly toxic. And also the Najafgarh drain, the Shahadra drain, and the supplementary drain coming from industrial estates, which are maybe conforming, not conforming, also injecting various types of effluents into the Yamuna. Yamuna floodplains are full of heavy metals, PFAS, aromatic hydrocarbons, and various other kind of pollutants. Next, please. So the major, again, I have shown you the three main drains we have shown, and we have also shown the color of the water. You can see, how it changes as soon as it enters the city. Next, please. Next. Next, please. Yeah. So the main action plans are that cleaning of the three major drains. And as you know, there are several University of Wisconsin, there are several embassies, Spanish embassy and, US embassy, and there's several, even the UK, they are all involved in helping in cleaning of the Najafgarh and the supplementary and the Shadra drains. And the NGT is monitoring that. Trapping and cleaning of the remaining 15 drains directly falling into the river Yamuna, dredging of the major drains and in the 22-kilometer stretch, laying of sewerage. We have what is known as a very interesting interceptor system, where there were so many places, unauthorized colonies which have become authorized, where there is no sewerage system. So those are all being trapped into the interceptor sewerage system. And those big plants are first treating it and then letting it out into the Yamuna. All these are being constructed now. Some are functioning, some are yet to function now. Immediate action on bioremediation and development of the public space. Next, please. As you can see here, this is the plan of action, the primary, secondary, and the tertiary drains. And augmenting the existing STPs and construction of new STPs, interceptor sewer project, which, as I told you, is for making sure that sewage, that is human excreta and other things coming from unauthorized colonies which have become authorized, how it has to be diverted into the interceptor, treated, and then the wastewater is, then the treated water is used for rejuvenating lakes and water bodies in the city rather than being thrown back into the drains. Next, please. So as you can see here, these are the places where the various interceptor projects and STPs are already planned and are under construction. Next, please. And as you can see, trapping and cleaning of the remaining 15 drains directly falling into the river Yamuna. This is also happening in various places. Of course, because of COVID, many of these projects have come to a halt, also because of lack of funds. And of course, what they are doing is they are tapping CSR and various private resources and asking some of the private organizations also to participate in this process of cleaning of the Yamuna. Next, please. These are the exact locations where the interceptor colonies have been, interceptor plants have been proposed, as you can see here, and even at the Metcalf house. And many of these places, it is expected that the treated wastewater, in fact, as member of the Rotary Delhi Central, we are also doing a project of rejuvenation of the Kishangarh Lake using the Kishangarh STP treated wastewater. So we are going to be trying all these kind of things and how CSR activities can improve the quality. Next, please. Yeah, this is some more details of the same thing. Next, please. And this is also another several drains. Next. Yeah. So what are the short-term methods and what are medium-term and what are the long-term? Now, of course, the short-term will always be that address the immediate sewage, wherever it is going and treat it. Medium-term is that, some of the things have to be replaced and renovated. And the long-term is to make sure that you estimate what can happen with the growth of the city and make sure that, you provide adequate or excess capacity so that it can handle whatever the waste water that will be generated. Next. So these are the methods by which major drains are being dredged. And, you can see all the eutrophication that has to be removed and a lot of aeration has to be provided. Next, please. So they are being done by nano aerators. So these are the various types of master plans that have been put, and the total capacity of almost 375 MTD has to be increased. Next. So these are the key features of the Yamuna Action Plan of rehabilitation of sewers and increasing the rising mains and also the tertiary treatment. The advantage with tertiary treatment is if you put after the primary and secondary treatment where mechanical treatment is done in the primary and aeration and reduction of BOD, COD is done in the secondary. In tertiary, they use even reverse osmosis. So the quality of water becomes so good that you can use it for industrial purposes. That way we can reduce the amount of fresh water that industries draw. As I already told you in the first slides, industry and agriculture are biggest consumers of water, and therefore that can be met through these kind of and tertiary treatment plants in many parts of the country, including Surat and including Chennai and several other places. They are actually selling it, the industries, and industries purchase tertiary treated water. Next, please. So these are the ways in which phytorids can be used, even in lakes, and rejuvenation of Housecar's Lake, Sanjay Lake, and all has been done like this. Using treated wastewater, they can use root zone technology of recovering, and so many of the water bodies, which are recharging our groundwater, can be rejuvenated using these kind of biological methods, instead of putting plastic and covering it and not allowing it to breathe. Next, please. You can see these are floating phytorids using microbes and also aeration technologies. Next, please. And even big drains, some of the big drains can actually be addressed through these methods. And you can use the geogrid method. And some of the water waste can become quite clean. And actually, if they are in parks and gardens, they can be utilized for leisure and for recreational purposes. Next, other than recharging. Yeah. So here you can see the Osho Park in Pune, which has been rejuvenated through using phytorid and biological methods and removing all the solid waste. Next, please. And this is, of course, how China has been using. We also use the Canna and Taifa plants, various other places for rejuvenating, especially where there is wastewater and especially sewage and human excreta. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So these are some of the locations, and you can see using various different technologies like oxidation ponds. Next. Next. I will run through the slides. These are basically examples of how to do it. Yamuna Biodiversity Park, as you know, the Center for Ecological Studies in Delhi University has really done a tremendous amount of work in showing us how various Kalindi Kunj and various other biodiversity parks have been able to treat the water as well as create recreational spaces and water recharge. Next, please. This is yeah. Next. Yeah. So these are the various projects of the Delhi Jal Board. And also, most important thing we have to remember is solid waste should not be thrown into the any of the water bodies, because that will actually affect its cleaning capacity. So awareness programs is very important. Next, please. That's all. Some of these slides which I've taken for wastewater, I've taken it from Mr. R.S. Tyagi, who was former member of the he's a member of the DJP and continues to be a member of the master plan development. So thank you very much, and I hope I've been able to cover whatever was required. Welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Professor Mani, for your elaborate and comprehensive presentation. It was very, very insightful. And thank you so much. We learned a lot. This was like an educative
Quality
report.
class.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome.
So, if you would allow, we would take some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you really covered a lot of themes under the topic of waste management. I would just pick up a few, and my question to you is, how should we actually harness the evidence based and consistently applied wash and waste management practices, because you actually have an expertise on it. How can we utilize these practices in communities, homes, schools, marketplaces, and even in healthcare facilities in order to prevent human to human transmission of pathogens, or the COVID-19 virus for that matter? Because you mentioned that in the plastics, the virus remains for a longer time. Um, if you could respond to that. And I would club this with another question as to, uh, is there any scope of generating wealth from the COVID-19 waste, the biomedical waste? Because we have spoken a lot about waste, wealth from waste, and waste to wealth, something like that. So if you could shed some light upon these, then we'll go to the
Yeah.
next slide.
These things have been discussed before. First and foremost, I would like to say that our rules and laws in our country as far as biomedical waste goes has addresses even this kind of category 1, category 2 kind of viruses. It is, like if the rules have been made in such a way that even viruses like which transmit SARS and MERS and even Ebola to some extent, one can say, it can actually address those kind of things. So COVID is basically a category 1, 2 kind of a waste, because virus. The reason being that even though it is highly contagious and it is being transmitted by aerosols or droplets in the air, but its current infection fatality rate, or CFL or IFL, what you call it, IFR, is lower than 0.5%. And especially even in a place like Delhi, in India, you can see that the fatality, we have tried to keep it down to the minimum. And also, but whereas if you take SARS and MERS and H1N1 and some of those viruses, they have got higher fatality rates, despite the fact that only thing is that their transmission route was such that because they were vector based or it was an agent, and it was not being transmitted from human to human through aerosols or through spit or through, just speaking to each other or by touching something. It appeared as if, it was not as dangerous. But COVID-19 waste, as long as one practices good practices, and we wash our hands regularly in the proper manner, or make sure that we are wearing protective things like masks, and also keeping the safe distances, and making sure that we don't go into highly dense areas. For instance, your mask, your cotton mask, for instance, or any mask, is capable of preventing about 100 microns, whereas the virus is like 0.01 micron or something like that, very small. So if you remain even at 6 feet or 8 feet distance, but for a very long time in a very close atmosphere, it may not prevent transmission. You understand what I mean? So that has been found. Even yesterday's newspaper had that kind of thing. That if a person is continuously talking and you are there in close proximity, any kind of preventive device may not help. So in the case of viruses like COVID-19, or what they call as SARS-CoV-2, the name of the virus, it is because of its contagiousness and it is easy transmissibility. It is a dangerous virus. But otherwise, it has been found that there are many people who are asymptomatic. There are many people, who are having mild symptoms. But it is the management of the very severe cases that is really proving to be a problematic situation. Okay, now coming to, so as long as, I did not deal with those specific slides because I felt that, the topic was more on responsible consumption production. But I have slides where, we have got very clear indications. The guidelines have been made. We were all part of making the guidelines, where it clearly the Central Pollution Control Board has said that how you have to do the segregation. That is, even if you have a COVID positive patient in your house, make sure that that person is isolated, but the caregiver and is properly protected, but give only the patient the disposable masks or disposable tissue. And if that person is very old or unable to go to the toilet, then disposable diapers. And that has to go into the yellow bag. And today we have instructed almost every municipality or urban local body to collect that kind of waste. But there is no need for, food is not a contagion. So you can give it in a stainless steel plate. There is no need for disposable plates or disposable cutlery. You can use simple reusable either china or stainless steel, and make sure that the leftover food of the patient is given only the food that can be eaten by him or her. The leftover food can be put in a commode and flushed away, whereas the plates and everything, the cutlery, everything can be just washed with hot water at 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. The virus does not survive higher than that. In fact, experiments done in UK has shown that at 100 degrees Celsius, it doesn't even remain for a minute on the surface. And just simple hand washing with good 20 seconds of good soap and lathering is able to kill that virus. So you can imagine it is not like a hemorrhagic virus or anything like that. So most important thing is not to get unnecessarily panicked. Follow the segregation system. As I also said that the other non-COVID people, residents of a COVID positive households, they can continue to separate their dry waste or recyclable waste, their food waste, and and their domestic hazardous waste, and give it maybe keep it for 48 hours and then give it to the waste collector. But the gloves and the tissue and the masks used by the COVID positive patient or the specific designated caregiver, that can be kept in either a paper bag or in an ordinary bag for 72 hours. Snip it, cut it, and then give it to the waste collector. So very recently, I had a presentation for Rotary also, where we have said that make sure that the waste collector is informed. Today, the Supreme Court has said, and everybody has adopted, that there is no need to put a poster in front of every house. And it's not correct. It causes stigma. And it also reduces transparency because people don't want to tell you that there is a COVID positive patient in their house. But at the same time, if you encourage them through WhatsApp groups, through RWAs, show empathy, say that, look, we are here to support you. Do you need food? I thought that was very nice. There were some NGOs going around saying that, we will provide food to every COVID positive patients. And, that kind of an attitude, if we adopt, and make sure that the yellow bag, which is going to the common biomedical waste facility or to a waste to energy plant, has only that waste which can actually transmit the virus, and not each and everything, not food waste, and not all sorts of unnecessary waste that will only overwhelm the system. It is only because of our sensible, rational management of the waste, which increased almost 5-fold during the first few months of the COVID pandemic. Today is very rationally being managed. But unfortunately, we are not taking care to protect our waste workers. That is the main thing. Even though they may be given gloves and masks and overalls and shoes and all that, but as responsible citizens, we need to make sure that if there is a 72-hour rule or a 48-hour rule, we should follow that. And we should put only that waste which will be highly contaminated into the yellow bag, inform, and then give it to the waste worker, so that the designated ULP person sends the waste worker also who is properly protected, who has got PPE, and who has been instructed as to how it can be taken to the temporary storage, how from there it can go to the common biomedical waste facility. So it is in the hands of each one of us, I would say. Right. And as far as waste to wealth, even when the biomedical waste rules were being made, this is one area where we should not even think about making any wealth or anything like that. We should just focus only on one thing, that because even with very, very detailed calculation, my PhD thesis was on biomedical waste. We found that it is hardly 1 or 2% of the municipal solid waste. Even if you take all healthcare waste of different categories in the city or in any area. So we should really focus on making sure that, and that those detailed color codes have been given to all the healthcare establishments, and that is being properly, we have made pictorial guides and videos and movies and everything. And therefore, they should follow that. And of course, today we have said that the PPE and the full suit, which is being used in healthcare establishments, especially in ICUs and etc., that goes into the yellow bag, whereas shields and goggles and splash-proof aprons and foot covers can actually go into the red bag, which is autoclavable, shredded, and it can be reused, and it can be used even for putting in cement kilns, or it can be used for making roads and all those kind of things. But one should be absolutely careful and make sure that autoclaving is a very, very reliable process, even much more reliable than incineration is. Because, in incineration, the temperature, if it drops, it might just char and may not kill the virus. Whereas autoclaving is steam sterilization. There is both temperature and pressure and retention. So the virus will definitely die in autoclave. You can be sure, especially the COVID virus will die. And therefore, you have to make sure that these processes are followed properly. There is, of course, autoclaved material comes out, it can be shredded, it can be reused, as I said, but it cannot be put under the category of making wealth. It's not wealth anyway. You still are trying to find a disposal mechanism. And of course, biomedical waste is something that from which we have to be always careful, extremely careful.
Actually, if it is properly disposed, then we can ensure that, in a way it is a wealth for the society, so that it doesn't actually.
That is right. Health is wealth.
Yeah.
Jaan hai to jahan hai.
Right. So my next set of questions before we conclude for the day is that, you spoke about generating revenue. We sell all our, waste items. You had segregated it on your slide also. This actually helps in incentivizing the households to segregate their particular types of wastes. But they are households are not really aware about whom to sell these segregated waste to, apart from the kabadi walas outside their homes. So is this the correct way, or how do we navigate through this challenge, at the local household level? Families who are educated, not educated, and from all sections of the society. And my final question to you is that, uh, taking cue from the developed countries, how do we actually respond? How should our policymakers respond to the entire waste composition, production, consumption? What are your recommendations? If you could just bullet them to us. Yes, over to
I would
you.
say both these questions are diametrically different. So I will first address the first one. I would say that if you analyze the home economics, the quantity of revenue earned from dry recyclables is not very high. It may be, your cardboard and, your newspaper, which may earn a little bit. And, some of the PET waste or glass or metal can earn some amount of waste from revenue from the kabadi wala. There are some communities now which have come up with waste parks, where you can go and do deposits, like you can deposit your waste. My sincere and appeal and very ardent appeal is, your electronic waste, please do not sell it to your kabadiwala how much ever he persuades you. How much ever he persuades you, even if he is willing to give you 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees for your computer, don't give it. because that goes into the the informal sector, and it causes very, very severe pollution, irreparable damage to the environment. So I would say that if at all you can give it to institutions, if you want to donate any of your electronic products which you have finished using, or even and you have to create a lot of awareness even to the person, even to the lower economic person whom you are donating it to, by saying that don't give this to the kabadiwala, deposit it in there are many what they call as the producer responsibility organizations, PROs. Like, I'm just giving examples, I'm not promoting anybody. You can say Karo Sambhav or Namo or Earth Sense or any of these people, Chintan or anybody like that. They are registered, they are very often there in your pollution control committees or pollution control state boards, in their websites or the Central Pollution Control Board websites. Find them, call them, and these kind of ways you should take it as a donation, because many of the PROs and companies further, because the cost of recycling these products, because they are so hazardous, is so high that they may not be able to give you the same price what a kabadiwala will give you. But even then, these kind of dry waste and recyclable waste, you should take it as a donation, if possible, instead of making money out of it, because the household today's, if you see the home economics, there used to be a time when my mother used to separate even the milk packets and sell it. Today, how many housewives or even working women are doing that kind of thing, earning anything? So it is not a very great incentive, because the trouble taken to separate it is much more than the kind of money that you can earn. And when very often, because of some policy or some kind of an export-import imbalance, sometimes plastic gets imported into the country, sometimes paper gets imported into the country, and there is a glut in the market, and the kabadiwala is not even able to offer you 10 rupees a kg or even 9 rupees, 8 rupees a kg. So you might think, maximum in a month you might be able to accumulate something like 10 kgs. So you won't even get 100 rupees for it. And for 100 rupees, you might think that kaun ye sab karega type, that. But we should do it, not because we are going to earn much from it, but because the fact that, as you rightly said, health and environment are irreplaceable. They are the biggest wealth we can give ourselves. And by segregating, keeping a place, or even if there is a park and somebody asks for a donation and say that you come and please deposit at your cost, you have to spend for the transportation, you have to put it in your car or your vehicle and take it there and deposit. Please do so. Even if it, you feel that, your kabadiwala is giving only, maximum you're able to earn is maybe 100 rupees from newspaper, another maybe 50, 60, 100 other waste, and you feel that this is all you're going to get per month, and it's not worth it. No, it is worth it. But every time you separate these dry waste, recyclable waste, or every day, there might be other things that your kabadiwala won't buy, like very, very thin plastic, or carry bags, or multi-layered kurkura packets, or biscuit wrappings, or something like that. But even that, please keep it, clean it, dry it, keep it in a bag, and give it every day or every other day or once in a week, whatever the ULB system you are in, to a waste collector. And that person is earning something. So you think that you are paying 50 rupees or 100 rupees per month as his salary component as part of your RWA, and you are giving him extra 50, 60 rupees or 100 rupees every month as your dry waste. because these people, that is all that they earn from the dry waste that, which is clean and recyclable. They earn by selling it to the various this thing. In fact, in the master plan, this is one of the things that we have been trying to, um, sort of emphasize, that there should be space in our markets and in our community spaces, that there should be more places where we can go and deposit our segregated dry waste or recyclable waste. And even if we don't want to sell it, we want to donate it, there should be place even for electronic waste. As you said, developed countries. In fact, when I was there, we made a very short film called A Green Citizen. And there are many places in United States and other Germany and many other European and Australian, cities, where in their marketplaces they have made space, where even you can go and deposit your used or usable electronic products which you don't want to use now. And sometimes but very often those people don't give you any money for it. Developed countries, you have to pay for the waste that you are depositing or you are giving. No place in the world, except in some of the developing countries and South Asian countries and Southeast Asian countries, do you get money for giving your waste. It's always you pay for giving your waste, for being treated. So I would say that even though in our country we don't have to still do that, but master plans have to be altered in such a way that we have still got so many repair and refurbishing technicians. I would call them, startup companies. They are, you can get your pressure cooker repaired, you can get your vessels repaired, you can get your clothes repaired, you can get your even mobile phone repaired, you can get so many products. Some people come and do it in your house, some people you can. So master plans have to include space for these kind of people. That would be responsible consumption, production, and reuse, I would say. And that is there in many cities in the developed countries, and we need to adopt that.
Right, right. Absolutely, ma'am. I totally agree because, actually, if responsible waste management is not undertaken, which actually is the most tangible form of how we are moving towards sustainable development. It will be visible every passing day. Our dump sites, ever increasing height of the dump sites, or even in the coastal areas. So absolutely, totally agree that responsible waste management, and it is actually, it percolates deep down to the levels of individuals, not grassroots, not civil society. Of course they are advocates, or also the policy makers, but it is the responsibility of the individual, each individual household, to ensure that they undertake, or we undertake such responsible practices towards waste management. So thank you so much, ma'am. It was such a learning experience for all of us, and we learned a lot, and you educated us for the various things that we should do, we should not do, and we might eventually help India move towards a cleaner, cleaner environment and cleaner country, so as to say. So effective waste management and waste and resource management is very important. And also you touched upon the how do we effectively use or effectively channel the COVID-19 pandemic, and navigate through the challenges that are posed by it. So once again, I would like to propose the formal vote of thanks
I just
to.
want to add one small
Yes, ma'am.
interesting
Yes.
thought came in.
Yes.
I don't know whether health insurance companies, can somehow include a tagline saying that, every time you do sustainable waste management or a sustainable purchase or, consumeristic, your action, you are actually buying a little bit of health. So I don't know whether health insurance companies can be, motivated to also include sustainable waste management and as their taglines. This is
Yeah,
just an
that
idea.
is a very innovative idea, and certainly they should adopt this. Perhaps if we can more proactively advocate this kind of policy recommendation for them, it would be really, at least if it is just, if it just goes to the guidelines or to the rules and regulations or terms and conditions, at least 1 in 100 might read it, and it might lead to some sort of a change. Very innovative. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Yeah, with your permission, I would like to propose the formal vote of thanks. Um, so on behalf of the Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development at IMPRI, New Delhi, India Water Portal, and Terry School of Advanced Studies, I wholeheartedly owe my gratitude to Professor Shyamala Mani for spending time with us this morning, and for educating us with enormous amount of literature and practice and experience on how do we responsibly consume and produce for climate action towards effective waste and resource management amid COVID-19 pandemic. I also thank Team IMPRI for your support, and for all of us who are watching us on Zoom, Facebook Live, and also later on YouTube. So keep yourselves tuned to the State of the Environment #Planet Talks, and we hope to see you again. Thank you very much, ma'am, and we really look forward to engaging with you more and more, and to learn more and more from you. Thank you so much. I wish you a very
Thank
good
you.
day.
You too.